All right, so a very warm welcome to yet another Wellness Wednesday with the Brain Wellness Program. Lovely to have you all here. Today's topic is mindfulness and is yoga, and I'm looking really forward to that. Honestly, I think I can truly do with that right now. So I'm glad we are doing that. For anybody who has not been to any of those Wellness Wednesdays yet, particularly since we've taken them online, we are now doing this for an hour. Before, when we did this in person, we had 2 hours and we had a coffee break in between. So now the coffee break is rather virtual. So if you have a cup of coffee, that's great. But because it's online, it's an hour. Anybody who hasn't been working with the Brain Wellness Program yet or is not familiar, just briefly, this is an initiative, one of the flagship programs at the Center for Brain Health at UBC, and also the sports medicine that is currently entirely financed by philanthropy. So we've had very generous donors saying, well, this is really something we want to do and that we're supportive of. And that is how we can offer those programs for free. We have a huge variety of programs, including mindfulness and yoga, and Elaine will speak to that at the end a little bit again. And with that, I'll actually hand over to Elaine Book, who is one of the backbones of the program, and she's going to introduce the topic and our speakers. Elaine, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Silky, and welcome everyone today to another wonderful, now we can add the word wonderful, Wellness Wednesday program. A lot of W's, but I just thought I would take a moment to before I introduce our instructors for today, our speakers for today, just kind of to provide a little bit of a foundation, get us into the world of thinking about mindfulness and yoga. And really, I think some people feel that mindfulness has kind of been a thing of late, that this is a new strategy for wellness. And well, in fact, actually, people have been practicing mindfulness for thousands of years. And certainly while many trace its rooting back to Buddhism or Hinduism, it really does have its roots in Judaism, in Christianity, in Islam as well. And, you know, I think Kris is going to go into a lot more detail about it, but basically mindfulness really is this process of purposefully bringing one's attention to the experiences that are occurring in the present, in that present moment, and without judgment. And certainly since it's gained a lot more popularity and recognition in the Western world, kind of around the 1970s, mindfulness research has taken off. It has, increased 20-fold since the original research into it, and many clinical studies that have documented both physical and mental health benefits of mindfulness in people who are healthy, but also in people who have different kinds of health conditions. Certainly has shown improvements in managing pain, in managing brain health, improving concentration, focus, problem solving, decision making, and creativity. So that's just a little brief intro. I'm going to just introduce you to Kris Beech, who is going to be one of our speakers on mindfulness. And Kris is a certified meditation and mindfulness coach. And his passion for mindfulness practice developed through his professional hockey career, and where it really helped him with performance on ice, but as well with his mental health and well-being off the ice. He coaches mindfulness from an athlete's perspective in particular, with that belief that really everybody has the ability to improve when they put their time into practice. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to you, Kris.
Thank you, Elaine and Silk. And Elaine, what a wonderful description of what mindfulness is. And in terms of myself, anyone that I work with, I think as a coach or an instructor, I really think it's important to know where that leader is coming from. And in terms of mindfulness, it played a significant role in my life from a personal practice standpoint. And it was something that helped me in many different ways, as Elaine highlighted there. I was a professional athlete for many years, and the ups and downs of that experience, the highs and lows, they were something that were very challenging to manage at times. And so it got me to a point where I needed to make some changes, and there was that element of it, but there was also my own mental health journey that was included in that experience. And I had a lot of support coming through that time, and it helped me stay healthy to a point where I could continue to show up and do my job and go to the arena and practice. But there was still something there that I felt needed to be changed. And so I did a little bit of research, and at the time, this was almost 10 years ago, there was some phenomenal research in the area of neuroplasticity and how the brain is moldable and malleable. And when I got into looking into that, I realized that there's an opportunity here to make some changes in the way I was thinking and in the way I was reacting to the emotional life of my experience, the way I was behaving in relation to those emotional reactions. I understood that there's a way to make some changes. And at the time, mindfulness and meditation was garnering some support in making positive changes in the brain. So knowing what I know about practice as an athlete, knowing that putting time into something, you can see improvement just by putting that time in. This really resonated with me with this practice, because it made sense to me that if I put this time into practicing focus and attention and awareness, and I repeat this practice on a regular basis, knowing what I knew about the malleability or the plasticity of the brain, I realized that I can make some significant changes. And it really was a point in my career, my personal life, my mental health journey that helped me turn a corner when I started to practice mindfulness regularly. So this experience was a profound experience for me, and made a significant difference in my quality of life and well-being in terms of stress reduction, managing my mental health, and like Elaine said, my performance improved on the ice as well. So a variety of different things, and the thing about it is that it's individual for people, and it helps people in different ways. And my experience will be different than your experience, and so there's a variety of different things that it can help with. And there's a certain quality of attention that we use in mindfulness, and Elaine highlighted it. A non-judgmental attention of our present moment experience, an attention of openness, curiosity, and acceptance of our present moment experience through our senses. And this is a deliberate practice, and that's really important to keep note of, that it's a deliberate choice to pay attention in this way. So we pay attention to our breath is one anchor that we can pay attention to in this way. Our body, the sensations in the body, the feeling of the weight of the body, where we're sitting, where we're standing. We can pay attention to our seeing in that non-judgmental way, and our hearing in a non-judgmental way. And I know it sounds, quite challenging, and but really, again, the key is that it's a deliberate practice. And what I've learned, and how it works, is that at the beginning it'll feel like you're really making an effort to make this choice, to pay attention in this way. But what I've learned is that when you rep out that effort and you rep out that choice and you do it over a time period and you practice it, you naturally start to become more mindful, and it becomes more efficient and more fluid. And I like to compare it to working with a physical skill. The only thing is, this is a little less tangible because it's hard to see the improvement. With a physical skill, we can put the time in, and quite often we can feel the practice, we can see the practice. So it's a little more apparent when we're practicing. But with this, there's a quality of committing to that deliberate choice to pay attention in this way that over time contributes to that natural way of being more mindful. So that's my experience with this practice. And again, the key word is practice, really important. And it's a lifelong practice, and something to keep in mind as well. So now, in terms of what it takes to get going with the practice, there's a few things that are required to really get engaged with the practice. Number one is the willingness to put the time in. And this is quite often the biggest obstacle for people. And if we are willing to put the time in, and we are willing to make space for this practice, that is the biggest and best step we can do. And really, again, that is a key ingredient to getting going, is just that willingness to put in the time. And we covered this a little bit before, but the attention that we use is the second thing. And it's an attention of open-mindedness, like I mentioned. We want to approach this practice with an open mind, and when we do so, we are open to realizations. We're open to learning from the practice. If we approach with some thoughts of how it should go, or what we can achieve, or how it should look, then we're less open to making some realizations and learning from the practice. So we approach with this effortless attention and open mind, and allowing the process to happen. And then thirdly, we have our focal points, and I mentioned the senses. And in mindfulness, like I mentioned, we pay attention to the senses. We have seeing, hearing, the breath, body sensations. We also pay attention and observe our thinking. So these are things that we can observe and be open to, and acceptant, and have acceptance of, curiosity. And this is the focal points of our deliberate practice. We don't use the sense of smell, because quite often smell is not consistent. We can use smell to set the tone for a practice, but quite often it is not something that we use as a consistent anchor in mindfulness practice. If we talk about consistent anchors, the breath, the body, our other senses are always accessible to us in that moment. So they provide a solid anchor to deliberately choose to engage with and be present with. In terms of the practice, there's a couple different forms of practice. And what we're going to practice here today is what we call a formal practice. So there's a formal practice in terms of sitting down and setting a specific amount of time to practice a mindful meditation or a mindfulness practice. And today we're going to sit for a little bit of time in our chairs, just where we are, and sit for that formal practice. So you can be in practice in a still sense, but you can also set a formal practice in movement. And yoga would be an example of a formal movement mindfulness practice. You can practice walking mindfulness, which would also be a formal practice within movement. The other element of practice is informal practice. And I like to compare formal and informal to kind of getting in the gym. The informal practice comes during our daily activity. And we take what we work on and practice in the formal practice, and then we apply it within our daily activity, whether we're washing dishes or doing laundry, any type of activity. We can learn to apply these practices to be present and to be with that activity fully. For example, I applied these practices to the hockey environment, every aspect of the hockey environment. So again, you can apply it to any activity. So we have formal and informal. Now, in terms of the practice, there are 5 fundamentals to exploring this practice. And these 5 fundamentals really help simplify the philosophy and help alleviate some obstacles to the practice. And before we get into our practice today, we'll highlight some of those 5 fundamentals. So the first one is that it's okay to have thoughts when we sit down and practice. This is really important. Many people have a misconception that this practice is about shutting out thinking, that it's about clearing the mind. And if we're not able to clear the mind, then we can't do it. And this will lead to people quitting right away when they sit down and they realize the mind doesn't stop. It may even keep people from trying in the first place. And they quite often say, there's no chance I'll be able to quit my thinking or stop my thinking, so I'm not even going to try. So this is a big misconception. The mind is meant to think like the eyes are to see. So if we think we're going to sit down and completely shut out our thinking, it's not going to happen. What we're working on is awareness of the wandering mind. And we're working on being aware of when our mind is wandering off of a focal point, for example, the breath. And that awareness gives us a choice. And this choice opens up our understanding that we have a choice of where our attention is. So if our thinking wanders, we are aware of it, and we're able to choose to patiently return back to the breath or the body. And this is that process that we're working on with mindfulness and developing that understanding of the control we have on our attention and our awareness. And this is an important process and an understanding that this is what we're working on. So number 1, it's okay to have thoughts. Number 2 is that we don't try too hard. We don't force our attention. And you mentioned that it was an effortless attention. So we use the same type of attention that you're using to listen to my voice right now. And this is really important. If we force concentration or we force focus, we'll put some strain on the practice, and we'll put some strain on the mind. So it's important to use that effortless, non-judgmental attention. And again, if we get distracted, that's okay. We just simply notice it, we're aware of it, and we shift back to the focus over and over again, and it doesn't matter how many times we have to do that. So that's number 2. We don't force it. We allow the natural process to occur. Number 3 is that we let go of expectations. Really important, and they use a term in an ancient term in mindfulness that we approach with a beginner's mind, and this is about that open mind to the experience. We approach each session, each practice, each moment as if it were our first experience with the practice. This is really important. We need to let go of any expectation of how it should go, what we should experience, how we should feel, whether we're doing it right or wrong. We let go of all that and simply apply ourselves to this practice using that non-judgmental, effortless attention. Important too, not to strive or look to achieve a certain benefit. Look to achieve a certain level of focus, look to achieve relaxation. Again, this is a natural process that we allow to happen when we open our mind and we're open to the experience, and we allow it to happen. So that's number 3, let go of expectations. Number 4 is that we're kind to ourselves in this practice. Very important. And this is one of the most important elements of these fundamentals, and something that we can apply to this practice that will, all of them will apply to our daily lives, but this one is really important, because we're going to train in this practice in a subtle way to be more kind to ourselves. So for an example, when we do have a wandering thinking or wandering mind, being patient, being kind. There's no need to get frustrated. Really being kind and compassionate toward ourselves in terms of those distractions. Another element of being kind is quite often if we sit down and close our eyes in a quiet place, the stories we tell ourselves can become more apparent, and not all the time are they are positive stories. Quite sometimes they can be negative stories, and really important if that happens during this practice. A great way to manage those moments is to silently say to ourselves, "Thanks for sharing," and return back to the practice. So we're kind to ourselves, and like I said, when we practice this within mindfulness, we're practicing it in a subtle way, and we can start to include it and embrace it in other areas of our life. This was a really key component for me when I first started with this practice. That's number 4. Number 5 is that we stick with it, and just like anything that we're learning, anything that we're proficient at, sticking with practice, sticking with it is where we see some of the fruits of our effort, and this is no different with mindfulness. Repetition is important, and there's a couple different aspects of sticking with it. So if you decide to join our program or get into this program, we're going to ask you to practice on a regular basis, the formal practice. And we're going to ask you to stick with a certain time during that practice. And what that means is that when you sit down and you set a time, stay with the practice through the whole time period. Because there will be days where it feels quite fluid and a little bit easier to do. There will be days where it feels a lot more difficult. And there will be days where it feels frustrating. You may feel some agitation, some boredom. You may think about everything else you'd rather be doing other than be sitting still and practicing, focusing on your breath, for example. But it's key to stick with the practice through these moments. Really important. A big part of the practice is noticing these impulses, these urges to move, to do something else. Notice how it feels, notice the sensations, observe them, and embrace them, and then shifting back to the focus of the practice and doing that over and over again. So really important part of the practice, stick with it through the whole session. And then the other element is the daily practice. And now, I think there's a certain amount of time. There's a lot of different research that shows varying amounts of time to stay with a daily practice and the frequency of daily practice. And what I've understood to be quite beneficial, and that I learned as a certified mindfulness coach, is that for householders, which means people that aren't monks, people that have other things going on in life, the optimal amount of time to get to is about 10 to 20 minutes twice a day with a formal practice, and then also informal practice. And this is something that we can work up to. In something that we can start with a little less time and gradually build up. And this is the way I built my practice, is gradually building up to more frequency and more time. So, but the daily practice, the repetition is important, and that's where we start to allow that natural mindfulness to be a part of our experience and make changes where we're more mindful without even deliberately making the choice. So, and that comes with practice and repetition. So that's the 5 fundamentals. We're going to get into a little practice today. We'll work on what I call a dynamic breathing practice and a breath awareness, a little bit of body awareness, and then that'll be it for the seated formal mindfulness practice before we get into yoga. Now, in terms of posture, there is some, certain postures that will lead to a more alert way of being, and I tend to instruct to be in a posture where we're alert. So I practice in a chair myself, and what an alert posture is that we have a spine that is relatively straight up and down, and we're not sitting in a rigid position, a very stiff position like an admiral or a captain. We can find that spine, that neutral spine, and we can allow our body to rest into that neutral position. But we want to maintain an upright position as much as we can throughout the practice. And you can support your lower back into the back of the chair to help support the back. And that's the position for the spine. Our hands, we can rest palms down or palms up on your knees or in your lap, whatever you prefer, whatever's most comfortable for you. I rest my hands palms down. With our fingers, you can try this if you want. I use this as another way of being mindful. I have a light touch with my thumb and my pointer finger. So if you're within the practice and your fingers start to move away from one another, then you can again move them back and have that light touch. If you're pressing a little hard, then you're a little tense. So it's just a light touch, and it's a nice way again to be present. And that you can do that if you want. You don't have to do that. Our head, we want to hold flat, like it's holding up the ceiling. And we'll have a very slight chin tuck towards the chest. And that is the posture that I use all the time. Now, if this is not comfortable for you, you can also lay on your back on the floor. And this is something that, we can use as a posture if sitting is not comfortable for you, and that's pretty straightforward. You lay on a mat on the floor, and again, that's pretty straightforward how we do that. Now we can practice with our eyes closed, which I recommend for beginners. And if at any time during the practice you feel as though you need to open your eyes and take a look around, by all means, go ahead, open them, take a look around, get your bearings, and then close them and return to the practice. Sometimes people get itchy. They get itchy in their face. Go ahead and mindfully scratch those itches. At one point, you'll be able to work with those sensations and embrace that itchiness and allow it to be there. But for now, we can mindfully scratch that itch. If there's any discomfort or pain that arises, for now, we can slightly adjust any part of the body to alleviate some of that pain or discomfort. So we are ready. That is my talk. We're going to practice a breath awareness practice. The breath is the anchor of mindfulness, and we'll do a little body awareness as well, and then that'll be it. So go ahead and close our eyes, and we'll begin with a deeper breathing rhythm in and out of the nose. Each inhale begins with full expansion of the stomach, and then full expansion of the rib cage. And then we extend the chest out slightly at the top of each inhale. The exhale is natural, long, chest falling naturally, rib cage contracting naturally, noticing the belly drawing towards the spine, emptying the lungs completely at the end of each exhale. Breathing in, noticing the body expanding 360 degrees, opening up the chest cavity for the lungs to fill with oxygen, energy providing oxygen. At the top of each inhale, noticing a very slight pressure of the lungs on the diaphragm, a slight pause at the top of each inhale. The exhale is long, slow. A slight pause at the bottom of each exhale. Continuing with this rhythm of breath for several more. Noticing that the inhale may be slightly shorter than the exhale. And there's no need to force a breath. Allowing for the natural bellows-like motion of the diaphragm. And if you notice the mind wandering to thinking, the future, perhaps the past, noticing and patiently returning to the breath. Breathing in, you're aware you're breathing in. Breathing out, you're aware you're breathing out. And as you're exhaling, noticing the shoulders, allowing the shoulders to fall away from the ears. Noticing on the exhale the weight of the arms. Noticing where they're resting on the knees or in the lap. Breathing out, noticing where you're sitting. Noticing the weight of the body through the chair, supported through the pelvis. And again, noticing any wandering thinking. And patiently returning to the breath. And breathing out, noticing where you're sitting. And on the next exhale, paying attention to where your feet are, supported by the floor. Now shifting attention to the entire body. Breathing again deeply, opening up the chest cavity on the inhale. On the exhale, noticing if you're able to invite the body to settle with gravity. And nearing the end of this practice, you can return breathing to a natural rhythm in and out of the nose. Welcoming any sounds we hear in the environment. We can begin to move into the space around us, beginning with the fingers and the hands, the feet, the toes. Stretch out the neck a little bit. And on your own time, beginning with a soft, unfocused gaze about 1 meter in front of you. You can open your eyes. There's no rush. And that was a formal mindfulness practice, breath awareness. It was about 8.5 minutes long, and something a great time to start with, and a very, very powerful practice that we can sit down like this and practice, and also apply that type of breath awareness within our activity, during any activity. That's something that I use quite often in my days. Again, that's our practice for today. That's a brief glimpse into a breath awareness and a little bit of body awareness in mindfulness. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for your attention. I'll turn it over to Elaine again.
Thank you, Kris. That was, I think, as Silky said at the beginning, probably just what we all need in every day. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I think one of the things that I was most struck about with when you were talking about the 5 fundamentals, in that 2 of them are just something that even if we're not practicing mindfulness at the time, that we could incorporate into our own way of being. And that's the letting go of expectations,
Mm-hmm.
and the being kind to yourself and practicing self-compassion. That those are just those two fundamentals of mindfulness, or certainly things that we can all try to incorporate into our daily life. Okay, so now we are going to move on to our next speaker, Anne O'Sullivan, who is our yoga instructor for the Brain Wellness Program. And Anne is a registered personal trainer with interests and specialties in older adult fitness, osteofit, happy hearts, balance, hip and knee post-rehab, and yoga. And she has worked with movement disorders since she began a personal trainer back in 2014, and has also done some training with Songshine and dance for PD as well. She has a background in coaching gymnastics and figure skating, horseback riding, and has competed in track and field and rowing. You know what I always love about reading people's bios is I learn things about them that I did not know. Over the last 25 years, she's practiced mime, physical theater, contemporary dance, yoga, and capoeira. And she has had a daily yoga practice for decades, and certainly does love to share the benefits that it brings to your mind and to your body. And so I am now going to turn over yoga to Anne.
Thanks, Elaine. And thank you for that wonderful introduction to mindfulness, Kris. Many of the things that I'll talk about with yoga also are the same ideas, that we don't have judgment. Each time we come to a yoga session, it's like the first time. We're not thinking, I've done this before. And also the awareness, just beginning with the awareness of the breath, focusing on the present, thinking where we are in time and space. For anybody who's not familiar with yoga, it's a very ancient Indian practice. Means to yoke, to unite, uniting the self, uniting the consciousness, uniting mind and body. And a lot of the emphasis is on the breath. So you've probably, or may have heard about prana. Prana is the vital life force. So when we inhale, we're taking in the vital life force, the oxygen that our bodies need to function. And then the apana is the expression or the expulsion of negativity, of spent air, carbon dioxide. Much of what we do in the yoga practice is with breath. So we practice different forms of breathing, ways to get the rib cage to expand, to get the lungs to expand, to practice efficiency, And I think I'll just begin with that, since we've just finished with Kris's mindfulness breath practice. So there's just breathing on our own, but there's also training the breath. Just like if you're a singer or a flute player, you need to practice different ways of breathing, beginning with just being aware of our own breath and the way we breathe, and also working to control the breath a bit. So I'll just do a basic breath practice, which we often start with in the yoga class, and that's a box breath. So as you inhale, you're feeling the air come into you, but you're also noticing where it comes into your body. So we can begin by putting our hands on our rib cage. And just take a deep breath in. And really try to expand the ribs. Feel the rib cage expand. And then exhale. And another inhale. And exhale. And then one more deep inhale. And exhale. And relax the hands on the knees. So it's just a way to also bring a bit of our tactile awareness. We have a lot of our brain is in our fingertips. So when we're touching parts of our body, more of our attention goes to that part of our body. So breathing into our hands is one way of doing that. The other part, of course, is the different postures. So a lot of yoga, you see people doing different postures, and part of the idea behind the postures is you have to breathe in different situations. So the easiest way to breathe actually is us pressed to line our stomachs. We can have full expansion of our lungs, but we don't function that way. You know, we're bending over, standing up, or if you're an athlete, often you're focusing on something and you might hold the breath. So we do different postures and try to breathe in different postures and feel the way that the rib cage, our diaphragm, or breathing apparatus responds to that. So as an example, we're going to stand up tall. And so feeling the connection of our feet to the ground. And the shoulders relaxed. So you're thinking about gravity, thinking about the weight going into the ground, thinking about the shoulders being relaxed into the ground, thinking about the shoulder blades being relaxed. Your chin is parallel to the ground. And again, you have that idea that Kris mentioned also, the head going up to the ceiling, the feet being connected to the floor. And from here, we're just going to do another deep inhalation and exhale. And a deep inhalation. So again, you're paying attention to how the rib cage expands and exhaling. And one more, inhaling and exhaling. Letting all the air go out before the new air comes in. Again, adjusting your posture with that top of your head coming up to the ceiling. Inhaling as we lift the arms because the rib cage expands, and so bring the hands over the head and reach up and exhale. And inhale the arms up, feel the rib cage expand. And exhale. And last time, inhale up. And exhale. And release. So that's at maximum expansion of the rib cage to with the movement of the body. So it's a way to train us to breathe with movement rather than against it for maximum efficiency of movement. And one more aspect of the physical practices we do is we create tension so that we can release. So we'll just do one standing posture here. So inhale the arms up to the side and reaching out to either side. And a little bit of a bend in the knees, so like a demi squat. So at the same time, you're trying to keep the shoulders relaxed, the shoulder blades are relaxed, and you've got your upright posture. And we're going to take a few breaths here with the arms remaining in this position. So take a deep breath in. And an exhale. A deep breath in. And exhale. And one more time, deep breath in. Exhale. And let the arms relax, which they will because they're probably tired. And we'll just come sitting down and rest the hands on the knees. Sitting up tall, letting the shoulders relax. And from here, I'm going to put the weight of one arm on the knee and just reach up. So this is where we have to think a bit more about our breath. Reach up with the hand, look up, and taking a deep breath here. Feel the rib cage expand and notice where there is a bit of inhibition. And exhale. And inhale. And exhale. And one more time, inhale deep. And exhale down. And just notice where you are feeling here. Coming back to your center, sitting up tall, letting the arms and hands relax. And let's go to the other side. Same thing, resting the weight on the forearm and on the leg and reaching up. Inhale the arm up and reach up. And again, as you're breathing, noticing where you have room, where you have space, and where you're inhibited. And a deep breath in, exhale, and come sitting back up. And just resting the hands on the knees. So there's a few of the breathing type things that we look at. Yoga is a huge, huge subject, as some of you know. It's got many different aspects, many different branches. What we are doing in the Yoga for Mind and Body is just some of these simple postures, and as well as some ways to understand a relationship to gravity. So learning how to let your body fall into natural alignment. We carry a lot of tension in our bodies, and that throws us out of alignment, makes it harder to breathe, and that, you know, creates a cycle of tension and anxiety that we carry around with us every day. So not just talking about posture, but doing many exercises that help us to learn to fall with gravity. So we'll just do a bit of that right now. So you can stand up. If you want to follow along. And this is also, you know, about coordination and balance, always standing with our best posture, being reminded of that all the time, helping us stay in alignment, helping to create room for breathing. So it's just stepping forward, placing your foot, and then letting your weight fall to the front. And just noticing, so this is where the awareness comes in, just to notice the fall and then recovery, coming back to your center. Stepping to the side, letting yourself fall to that side, feeling the weight go to the side, and pushing yourself back to the center. And then stepping behind. So this is where people might want to use a bit of support. It's harder to balance. Stepping back and then letting the weight fall to the back and then pushing back to center. And we'll just do the other side. So same thing. So stepping forward, you're staying upright and then letting the weight come to the front. Feeling the shift of weight, feeling gravity take you down and pushing back against it, coming back to the center and to the side letting the weight fall, pushing back to the center, and finally stepping back, using the support if you need it, letting the weight go back to the back, feeling the gravity, and then pushing against it. And I'm sitting down. So yeah, that's sort of in a nutshell. I kind of condensed it and cut back on the talk and wanted you to have this experience of it, because it is about your experience. It's about where you are. It's not about trying to be a pretzel. It's about opening up the spaces inside you, trying to get all the blood flowing, trying to get the joints moving, and just enjoying the feeling of being in your body with the aid of the breath. Yeah, so yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Anne. You know what, I think whenever we kind of plan these Wellness Wednesday and we have, a few different speakers on different topics, we always very quickly recognize that one topic in and of itself could, be designated or for the entire Wellness Wednesday, because there is so much to say about mindfulness, about yoga, about any of our other topics. So we appreciate how difficult it is to cut things down and to kind of give everybody those essential pieces. So thank you for that. We are close to the top of the hour, but we really just want to share with you a little bit about the spring programs. If some of you who are tuning in today are not familiar with the Brain Wellness Program, maybe I can get one of my colleagues to type into the chat the website address and certainly the email address. Yoga classes are ongoing on Tuesdays with Anne from 1:30 to 2:30. And Kris and Andrea are going to be starting their 4-week mindfulness class, and that's starting on May 13th from 12 to 1:30. Now, I do understand that our registration is close to capacity on that. If you're unable to register at this point, we'd really just ask you to email us. We are keeping a list of people who are interested and are looking at ways to meet the demand and to put on more classes and what that's going to look like. So if you're unable to actually register, then just send us an email indicating that you're interested, and we will then get back to you. I also want to bring attention to, again, on our website, we do have a resources page, and on that page does have some very valuable other kinds of resources around mindfulness and yoga, so you can always take a peek there. And within a few days, you will receive an email with a feedback survey, an evaluation. The Brain Wellness Program is continuing to respond to what people are looking for, your ideas, what went right, what could be improved upon. And so we really do appreciate your feedback and ask that you take a few minutes to respond to that evaluation questionnaire. Silky, anything that I'm missing?
No, I just really enjoyed the whole hour, and I'm very grateful to Kris and Anne to have brought some calm and peace and just joy into the day. And I hope that was similar for everybody else. And thank you to Elaine for leading us through the hour. And thank you to everybody who attended, and I hope we'll all see you in the programs.